All right, it's time to buy the perfect house in Benbrook, Texas. That's what we're going to get into today. So today's live stream, we're going to do things a little bit different. Now, if you've been following this live stream for a little while, you know that we operate in series. And this particular series is we're going to go into a property in Benbrook, and we're going to get straight to work. We're going to look at the property, analyze the property, look at the pictures, look at the description and some details, and then we're going to get into ways to finance the property. That way we don't waste any time. But also I want to share with you some things to consider as you're looking at property, things to consider as you read the details, and a few things along the way. All right, so let's do this. Sorry, just got a hey, what happened to our little subscribe button? There we go. All right, let's dig into it. All right, here we go. Let's go into Benbrook and find that perfect house. Now, let's see what's going on in Benbrook. So right now there's 125 homes for sale in Benbrook, and the average price point is $412,000. Now, let's remove all types of listings except the single family, because that's what we're going to look at as we do our breakdown. So just a quick summary of things to consider when you're buying. Number one is, what commute do you need to have for your lifestyle, for your work, and what you feel comfortable with. Number two, what community are you looking to build? Are you more into the lake lifestyle? Are you into recreation? Are you into the type of person that needs to go and hit up a restaurant every evening? Are you looking for trails? Are you looking for that perfect school district? What does that look like? And number three, the third question to ask yourself is, what's the cost? What's the budget? Can I afford it? So this is Benbrook. I'll zoom out just so you see where it's at in the grand scheme of things. As you can see, it's in the southwest part of the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. All right, so here we go. We have 88 properties, and we're going to go through very, very briefly, look at the different properties. The least expensive home for sale is $245,000. And the most expensive home for sale right now in the city of Benbrook is listed for $2 million. What a beautiful home that is. It looks like a brand new build, which most likely it is. But for our purposes today, for us to get the real, as much possible value from our time together, I'm going to go through and I'm going to find a property that we can purchase together. I'm going to go through and see what type of home we want to get for our money. This 390 seems to be right around the average price point that, well, you can't actually see it. Now you will. This seems to be the price point that, an average price point that is reasonable in the city of Benbrook right now. All right, so let's do this. Let's copy this, go over here, and go to an interface that you're most likely very familiar with, which is Zillow. So this is a 3-bed, 2 full baths, almost 2,000 square feet, and this priced at $390,000. It was built in 1984. So you're looking at about a 40-year-old property. So let's look at the property together before we go into do some math. One thing that I like to call out at the very beginning, just as a disclaimer, is that there's going to be some certain things that I call out as we go through these images that might feel a little bit like tedious, might feel like, oh, that's such a small thing to call out. The reason I do that is because the small things really bleed over into the larger things. So if we're not taking care of the small things, chances are you're not taking care of the big things like the HVAC, the foundation, the water heater, and things of that nature. So that's why I call out the small things. And the second thing, the reason I call out these some certain details is because when you're going and looking at property, oftentimes you're spending about 30 minutes in that property before you're making that purchase decision, or being encouraged to make that purchase decision. So in 30 minutes, you're going to find yourself making a $390,000 decision. So that's why I call out a lot of different things that you might not consider as you're walking through or as you're looking at the property. That's why I call it out right here in our live stream, so you can see kind of where I'm coming from. All right, so let's look at this property real quick and see what we've got going on. Now, we have a single story, what appears to be a single story. Remember, this property is 40 years old. Landscaping seems to be okay. It's not the most maintained property landscaping out there, but that is fine. Now, I can see that there have been some updates, but they do not appear to be recent updates. We do have hardwood floors. I really do appreciate that. I think that we might have gotten rid of the popcorn up here. I don't know if I can't really see it too well from here, but I do like that open space you have. Is that a painting or is that fireplace? All right. So we have the door right here on the right hand side. You're gonna have your dining, and you have like a little office corner right there. Then you have your open kitchen. So at some point somebody removed some walls, and I do like what they did with the place. You have, again, hardwood floors, wide open, very, very well done, very, very tastefully done. You have some built-in shelves over here that were added after the fact to add some storage space. You have the hanging vent right there, which I'm a big fan of, if I do say so myself. You have granite countertops from what I can see. Again, off to the right hand side you have your formal dining, and over here it does appear to be a space for your office. I do like the openness here. I do see a lot of open space here. Again, they took out some walls in order for this to happen. For this to be built in 1984 and for it to be this open is abnormal. That doesn't happen. So there were some walls that needed to be made disappear and they were disappeared, if you will. A lot of counter space here, granite countertops. You have the backsplash back there, which is a nice touch. And I'm a big fan of the teal color, so that's good. You have double ovens, and you have your microwave right there, which all seem to be stainless steel appliances. You're in a good spot there. Your doors, very unique doors. You have a door with its window, and you have the actual windows on both sides, and there appears to be a porch back there that is enclosed, so that's a good sign that you are going to be able to enjoy the outdoors. I do like what they've done with the place. This looks like your primary bedroom. Good size. And then you have, I want to almost say that this was probably a closet at some point and was made into a shower. Purely speculating based off of the layout that I've seen and I'm accustomed to seeing. Now again, this was updated. I'm not sure if this particular part was recently updated, but this was updated nonetheless. So it did get it was brought back to life, or current. It was never dead. It was brought to current standards, if you will. Now, is this a nursery? Not a nursery. Sorry, the reason I said that's because I saw a camera up there. So, okay. I would think, well, no, I won't look into it. Now, you have the older, so here, this is these types of doors. These are going to be more the flimsy doors that you would typically see. What I do see quite a bit more is this was updated at some point. I don't believe this was recent updating that has been done. So the present owner might have bought it as it was the first person that lived in it as it was rehabbed. Now, something that is happening a lot, especially with these types of doors, they get removed and replaced whenever you do update and upgrade your home with the barn style doors that just open side to side. That's been a hot trend for quite a while now. So that's what leads me to believe that, again, this was rehabbed, not this year, not last year. This was rehabbed before that. Probably this homeowner got into it and they were able to enjoy the upgrade. This is purely me speculating. I'm seeing this for the very first time, but there's a lot of context clues that lead me to believe that. I haven't looked at the CAD. I would be able to get the history and all that fun stuff and really formulate the picture and provide context for my clients as we were game planning on how we're going to make the offer and what type of offer we're going to make if that was the case. I do like that huge pergola right there. Huge, just massive. That's incredible. You have a good lot, good sized lot. A lot of greenery. I like this house. Let's see what our story is. Welcome to this beautiful home featuring a range of appealing amenities, enjoying the comforting warmth of cozy living space centered around a charming fireplace accented with a neutral color scheme. The stylish kitchen, perfect for those who love to cook. The sophisticated backsplash complementing the modern stainless steel appliances. The luxurious primary bathroom offers double sinks for convenience, large his and her closets, and a separate tub and shower for soothing relaxation. Step onto the covered patio, a perfect spot for enjoying fresh air and summer barbecues. Outside, the spacious fenced-in backyard provides ample room for leisure and hobbies. Embrace the house as your private escape retreat that blends style, functionality, and comfort into one elegantly presented package. All of this is located in sought-after Benbrook. That is true. Benbrook is hot. In a short distance to the schools, park, horse stables, and 2 to 3 mile drive to I-20 freeway. Now, here again, I'm reading into this, so I could be wrong. I don't think I am, but I could be wrong, just to give you kind of an idea of how I think about things. If this was recently updated, it would have been called out. So this update, depending on how long this homeowner has had it, they've probably enjoyed the rehab, or they could be the second people that enjoy the rehab. But this is a 40-year-old property, so these are not recent updates. Now, why do I call that out? Well, because if you're looking at there's a difference between getting a brand new, let's call it oven as an example. There's a big difference between getting a brand new one and one that was done 8 years ago, right? There's a difference in that. Just as a heads up. Let's continue. Now, since we are talking about Benbrook, we're talking about Tarrant County. That's going to be important as we calculate our property taxes. Speaking of property taxes, don't get married to this number that you see on the screen right now, 6519. You're going to be paying something different than this. I'm going to show you how to calculate that here shortly. 3 beds, 2 baths, almost 2,000 square feet on 1/5 of an acre, roughly. So you're in a good spot there. All right, let's see, anything abnormal. 2-car garage, Fort Worth ISD, that's expected. 40-year-old property. Okay. I don't believe we're going to have an HOA, and we are not, so that's good. Okay. I have everything that I need in order for us to make this calculation. So we're going to buy this house for $390,000. Now, this tool right here, this Loan Clarity Advisor tool, is going to compare multiple loans together. So make sure that you check out the link down below that gives you access to this. Now, if you can't find this link, then just go to winthehouseyoulove.com, go to the tools, and get the Loan Clarity Advisor there, which is the exact same tool that we use here internally to do analysis for our clients. So we're going to say that we're going to buy this property in Benbrook, Texas. Again, we're talking all about Benbrook right now. We're finding that perfect house, and this happens to be the perfect house for us. So we're going to go through and we're going to purchase it. So this house is $390,000. That's what we're going to offer. Since there's no HOA, we're not going to calculate that into the cost of our this home. So we're going to put $0. That's pretty easy. Home insurance. Home insurance is something that you're going to be paying for, especially if you finance it. So if you finance, you're going to be obligated to get your home insurance. Now, what premium is that going to be? We do a very simple calculation. It's pretty rudimentary, but it has worked well for us to give us a conservative number at the end of the day. So we put 0.75%. So we put 0.75% as the as our little formula. 0.75% times the value of the home to get the yearly premium for home insurance, and then we divide that by 12. So what that means on calculator terms is if we're going to convert 0.75% into a decimal so we can multiply it, we're going to go with 0.0075. So again, 0.75%, so it's 0.0075 times the value of the home, $390,000. That gives us a yearly home insurance premium of about $2,900. So we're going to divide that by 12, and our home insurance premium estimated is $243,000. Now, there's a lot that goes into this number. For you, it could be a little bit higher, it could be a little bit lower. It just depends on the condition of the home, the age of the home, the location of the home, the claims that you have had on previous properties or the home has had before, the coverage that you're getting on that home. So there's a lot that goes into that, but this number has proved well for us to give us a realistic expectation of how much we can expect to pay if we were to get insurance on this property, just to give us a good, again, starting point so we know what we're walking into. monthly property taxes. So property taxes is something that I really spend a lot of time in educating, not just our internal team, our real estate agents, a team of agents, but also clients throughout the entire country, really, on how important property taxes are, how to calculate them, and everything in between. So with property taxes, here's what we need to understand. When you buy a house, you're paying property taxes. That's the reality. You're paying property taxes when you buy a house, right? So it could be a different shift, a different mindset shift. If you've been renting an apartment or a house before, well, now you're responsible for the property taxes. In the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, the range in property tax rates is about 1.8% times or all the way up to 3%. So that means if you're on the higher end, if you're paying 3% in property taxes every single year, well, that is 3% times the assessed value of your home every single year. So you're getting taxed on that. So it's important to understand that distinction. The third thing to understand in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex especially is the fact that there's up to 5 numbers that you need to look for in order for you to get a realistic or a true property tax rate. Because you're not looking just for one number. It would be too easy at that point. You're looking for 5 numbers, up to 5 numbers in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. The city tax rate, you're going to need that. The county tax rate, you're going to absolutely need that. And your ISD, so the school tax rate, you're going to need those 3. Those 3 numbers, regardless of the city that you're in, you're going to need to find those 3 numbers, add them together, and get a property tax rate. Every single city without exception in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, you need to have those 3 numbers. Now, I said there's up to 5 numbers to consider. The other 2 numbers that often come up are the higher education tax, so think of community college, and or the hospital network tax. So if you're in Fort Worth as an example, JPS Health Network, so John Peter Smith Health Network, is also is something to consider that might come up, a property tax rate that might come up. So the city, the county, the ISD, potentially higher education, and potentially the hospital network. Those are 3 numbers that are going to come up. Sorry, my phone keeps going off. I don't know what's going on. So those are the 5 numbers that could potentially be at play as you're calculating your property taxes. So with that being said, with that understanding in mind, we're going to go to Benbrook, Texas, and find the actual property tax rate. All right. Now, the reason that I go through and spend so much time with property taxes in explaining it is because, check this out. If we were to not have that explanation happen, and we were to just quickly Google, hey, what's the property tax rate? And we take 56.5 cents, so that means 0.56%. You'd think, oh, okay, 0.56%. That's what property tax is. No, that is wrong. Remember, the range that we can get, that we're going to be finding ourselves in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, is about 1.8 to about 3. You're going to notice that 0.56 is not even on the radar. So that right there is going to tell you, okay, though, that's wrong. Let's go and find what is actually the true property tax rate for us. And as we click through, we're going to find the answer. So don't let all of this kind of confuse you, because it could be too easy to get confused here. So don't let that happen to you. Oh, we even have a water district here. Okay. So I said up to 5. There's mud, there's PID, there's water districts. Very rare, but those do happen. So we're going to do all the math today, so you have the confidence that the information that you're seeing today is going to be spot on. All right, so remember the city tax rate. That is right here. It's 0.56%. The county tax rate. Well, what county are we in? We're in Tarrant County. And you don't have to know this information. This is going to show you. That's why I go through the actual analogy or the actual property, so you know where to get this information. I know that this is Tarrant County because it tells me. All right, so we have the county. Now we're going to need the ISD. So we also know that this property is in Fort Worth ISD. Why? Well, because it tells us, right? So all this is in front of you. You just need to know where to go and get this information. So now that we know that this number is also in play, we have the first 3 numbers that we're going to need: the city, the county, ISD. The other 2 numbers that I referenced was the higher education number right here, so community college, and then also the hospital network, in this case JPS, so 0.1945. Now, what I didn't account for here, because it is rare, is PIDs, MUDs, and water districts. And given that Benbrook is a little bit further, is on the extremities of Dallas Fort Worth, so it's on the outer edge. I could have and should have probably brought up the MUDs, the PIDs, water districts. So here in this particular case, you're looking at 6 numbers to factor in. So here what we're going to do is we're going to add this plus this plus this plus this plus this plus this to get us our property tax rate. All right, so here's what we got. 0.565 plus 0.1945 plus 0.1121 plus 0.1945 plus 0.0267 plus, I'm so sorry, I think I skipped one. 0.565 plus, okay, I'm going to start over. Now I'm going to go here. Plus 0.1945 plus 0.1121 plus 0.1945 plus 0.0267 plus, which is going to be the highest number across, well, I won't say what I'm about to say, 1.0624. So our property tax rate that we're going to factor in here is 2.15. Or we could say 2.16 if we're going to round up. So the property tax rate in Benbrook, Texas right now is 2.16, which is on the lower end of the spectrum. So remember, 1.8 to about 3% is where the range is. So it's looking at 2.16. So what we're going to do is we're going to multiply the market value, excuse me, market value times this tax rate, 0.0216 times $390,000. So our property taxes that we're going to calculate are going to be 84,324. So I'm going to divide that by 12, 702. All right, so $702 is what we're going to budget for our property taxes. Now, here's the thing. I am overshooting. I'm overestimating our property taxes. One, because I don't want to give sticker shock later on. So you can, you know, this is a conservative number. Your property taxes are going to be lower. Now, why is that the case? Well, because I used the market value of this home. The market value is what you pay for it. So that's what the market pays for it. So assuming that we pay $390, that's the market value. The reason that this is overestimated here, even though the property tax rate, it is what it is. That's a real number. That's the actual number. The assessed value is what you're actually going to be taxed against. It's not the market value. The assessed value is going to be a subset of this oftentimes. So it's a percentage of this. Plus, there's ways to reduce the assessed value even lower. You can protest property taxes. You can add exemptions like a homestead exemption, or if you're over 65 or if you have disability. If you live in this home long enough, there's a cap on this market value could continue rise, but there's a cap on how much your assessed value of the home can go up, right? So there's ways that this assessed value can end up being significantly lower than this 390, and that's probably the case with this particular home, right? So that's why I'm giving you kind of the breakdown here, just so you know what to expect, and aren't surprised later on. But let's continue. I think that's enough information about property taxes. I want to show you how to finance this property and what it would ultimately end up being if you do so. What I'm going to do is we're going to go with 3 different types to buy this property, 3 different types of loan. 3 different options to buy this property. So whenever you buy a property, you are most likely going to get a loan. And there's various loans out there. There's conventional loans, FHA loans, USDA loans, VA loans, portfolio loans, jumbo loans. There's a ton of different loan products out there. But when you buy a property, it becomes a mortgage. And with these various loan types, there's different requirements. There's different, some people, you might be eligible for a certain type of loan. You might not be eligible for another. That's just, you need to qualify to get access to that loan. But also the loan itself does have some things that you need to take into consideration. So if you get a conventional loan as an example, which is one of the most common types of loans out there, the minimum down payment for a conventional loan is 3% down. That's one thing to consider. Now, another very common type of loan is an FHA loan. So an FHA loan, the minimum down payment there is going to be 3.5% down. So those are 2 big distinctions to note. Now, another big distinction to make is that if you put less than 20% down on any one of these loans, the conventional and FHA, you're paying what's called mortgage insurance. Now, what is mortgage insurance? Mortgage insurance is an insurance that the lender puts on you in the event that you default. So not only do they take their property back, but they also have some insurance or assurance that their risk on you has been mitigated, so it has been lowered. So they're gonna recoup a good amount of their investment back or their risk back. So that's they'll minimizing their exposure to this loan, if you will. Now, here's the kicker: that mortgage insurance, you're paying for that. You're paying an additional fee. You're paying an additional premium to that, and I'll show you what that ends up being. Now, the reason I bring up mortgage insurance again is because you put less than 20% down on these two options, option 1 and option 2. Now, the other reason I bring up mortgage insurance is because if you get a conventional loan, eventually, as you're making payments along the way, once you surpass 20% ownership, meaning that you own over 20% of that home, that mortgage insurance goes away, right? So it's very important to know. With an FHA loan, that mortgage insurance never goes away. You're paying that until that loan is no longer under your name. So either you pay it off completely, or you refinance out of it, you sell that house. Those are 3 ways that you're going to get rid of that mortgage insurance through an FHA loan. So just want to give you a heads up on that. But let's continue. I think the rest of the information is going to be better in we're going to get into that type of information as we go further. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to say 5%. We're going to say 5%. Those are the scenarios that we're going to find ourselves in. Our length of loan is going to be 30 years for all 3. And for our interest rates, we're just going to take an average, a reasonable average of what's happening in the market right now. So what is the interest rate right now to buy a house? Bank rate is where we're going to go. And we're going to see that the 30-year fixed rate right now is about 6.36. That's what we're going to use. By the time you're watching this video, that number has changed. I can guarantee you that. Doesn't matter if you're even watching live, this is going to change within the hour. So whenever you're watching this video, just follow along the steps and you're going to be just fine. Now we're going to apply the same interest rate to all of these loans, even though most likely you're going to get a different loan for your FHA loan and also a different loan, different interest rate for your 20% down. That's going to happen. All right, so let's talk about points. Points is you buying down the interest rate. So whenever you get a loan, whenever you get quoted, you submit all your documents to the lender. They say, hey, we can lend you up to $500,000 for an interest rate of 6.36%. You have the option of buying down that interest rate. So if this is your quote at 6.36%, you can buy down that interest rate. So if you buy 1 point, here's I got to make this distinction here. For you to buy 1 point, it's going to cost you 1% of the loan amount. So if you borrowed, let's say $375,000, and that was how much you borrowed, then you're going to pay about $3,750 for that point. So you're buying 1 point. Now, because you buy 1 point does not mean that you reduce your interest rate by 1 percentage point. That is not the case. I wish it was. When you buy 1 point, the math that I like to do is I give myself about 1/4 of a percentage point. So here, if I buy 1 point, I would be reducing this down to like 6.11% because I reduced it by a 1/4 of a percentage point. And that would be me buying down the points. That's what points mean. You're buying down the interest rate, which is another way of saying you're prepaying interest. Lender fees. Lender fees vary across the board. Give yourself 1 to 2%. In as far as consider your lender fees to be 1 to 2% of the value of the home, just to give you a good, reasonable estimate of what your lender fees are going to be. But they're going to vary across the board. It's going to vary in so many different ways. So what I encourage you to do is, as you're getting quoted by different banks and different lenders, different brokers, input that information here so you get a true apples to apples comparison. Now, we already talked about mortgage insurance because we are going to be in option 1 and option 2. We have to deal with mortgage insurance, so we're not going to. I'll show you where that falls into play here in a little bit. Now, if you plan to make extra payments, meaning if you plan to make extra payments into the principal, you have the option of budgeting that in and see how much faster you can pay off that mortgage and also how much more you save if you do that. So I encourage you to go ahead and use that calculator there. Now, this is a visual representation of what the loans would cost after 10 years. Now, we have this set to 10 years, and I'll toggle this here shortly, but this is a visual representation. So the loan cost, if you go a 20% down in 10 years, this loan would cost you about $185,000. If you get an FHA 5% down, then your loan cost would cost about $247,000, factoring in the interest, factoring in that mortgage insurance that we talked about, and factoring in an additional fee that an FHA loan has, which is that financing mortgage fee, which is 1.725% of the loan amount. So you see that you have way more fees here in the FHA 5% down than you do in a conventional 20%. Now, if you get a conventional 5% down, you here again do have mortgage insurance, but eventually this will go away. And I'll show you at what year and what month that happens. So here, your cost for those 10 years for this particular type of loan would be about $240,000. Now, you can toggle this left and right. It'll do the calculation for you. So if you do a full maturity of that loan in 30 years, you're going to see how much it cost you for that conventional 20% down versus how much it would have cost you for an FHA 5% down, how much the difference of that loan would be, right? So that you're able to make that calculation on the fly. But let's talk about our monthly mortgage payment, because that's going to be something that we have to pay every single month. At the beginning of your loan term, you're going to be paying a different amount than you're going to be paying at the end when you add everything together, the principal, the taxes, the interest, and the homeowner's insurance. So here, what you can see in year one, you're going to notice that all loans, regardless of which one you get, such little amount gets paid into the principal and so much gets paid into the interest, right? So how little goes into the principal at the beginning and how much more goes to the interest. Then you have your property taxes. Again, this is an overestimate. Your property taxes are going to be a little bit lower because we use the market value as opposed to the assessed value to give you a conservative number. Homeowner's insurance, here again, we used an estimate of what your homeowner's premium is going to be. And then your monthly mortgage insurance we have in the beginning of the year, in the beginning of your loan. You see that year one, you still have mortgage insurance. Same thing with your FHA. With FHA, your mortgage insurance is never going to go away. With a conventional, eventually you own over 20% of your home and that mortgage insurance falls away. I'll show you at what year and what month that happens. All right. All right, so let's talk about equity. At any point in time, you can see how much equity you have in your home. So let me illustrate a few different points here. Let's just say in year 21, you're feeling good about yourself. Hey, I only have 9 more years of this loan. So if you're thinking about it this way, well, if it's 30 years left, I have 9 years, 30 years loan, I have 9 years left. I mean, that means that I've paid about, I'm 66% of the way done with my loan. So you would think, well, I put in a little bit at the beginning, like 5% down, and I might own over 66% of the home. It just makes sense, right? So I'm 66% of the way there. I thought the same way. Unfortunately, that is not the case. In year 21, you barely own over 50% of your home, even though you put 5% down to begin with on both of these scenarios. With a conventional loan, you still haven't even eclipsed 60%, even though you put 20% down. Why is that the case? Well, it goes back to this breakdown that we saw earlier. At the beginning of the year, at the beginning of your loan term, and through year about 19 years and a half or so, most of the higher number was always the interest payment, and the lower number was the principal amount. So that means that you're paying less into the principal, you're paying more into the interest. So you weren't paying more into the interest, which meant that you're not getting rid of your debt that easily. You're not owning equity in your home as fast. That's why for the first 19 years or so, you're paying more into this interest and less into the principal, and that's what ultimately it translates to you owning less of the home that you thought. The majority, and this is mind-boggling to think about, 50% of the home equity, like the equity that you own in the home, happens in the last 9 years of your loan, which is crazy to think. So in 9 years, you own 50% of your home, except those 9 years happen to be behind an army of interest, an army of 21 year or 19 years where you're paying more to the interest than the actual principal. Hopefully this is making sense and illustrating the difference and power of, if you're able to do so, making extra payments over here, right? So you get to see how much faster you pay and how much more money you save, right? So just like giving that breakdown. Let's continue. Loan details. Let's talk about at what point your mortgage insurance falls off. Well, after 10 years and 2 months on your conventional 5%, it falls off, which is pretty cool. Now, here's the thing. You may think, well, that's 10 years. That's way too long. This is not factoring in the appreciation of your home. Your home will appreciate. Well, depending on the cycle that you're in, most likely will appreciate. So if your home is appreciating pretty rapidly and consistently, then your mortgage insurance could fall away in 9 years, 8 years, 7 years, 6 years. This is just based off of the math when you could expect that mortgage insurance to fall away. Now let's talk about our exit strategy. This is something that our clients really appreciate, because on average, our clients and you, most likely, if we're following the statistic, you're going to be in your home for about 10 years. So we do an exit strategy here. We do an exit plan to see, okay, if we buy this home in Benbrook, which we're on our way to do, for $390,000, in 10 years, what would that look like for me? Well, in 10 years, let's just say every single year, the home appreciates, goes up in value about 3% every year. And in 10 years, let's just say it costs us 7% to sell this house. This factors in realtor commissions, title work, maybe some updating, maybe some whatever. We're factoring in as much as we can on how much it's going to cost us to sell this house at the end of the rainbow. Now, every single year, we're going to say, hey, our property taxes, they're probably going to go up, and most likely they will. Same with our homeowner's insurance. It's going to cost more to rebuild this house later on, so the premiums are going to continue to rise. So this is a realistic scenario of what happens within these 10 years. This appreciates every year by 3%. This is a one-time expense at the end of the rainbow in the year 10. This is every year in taxes, every year in home insurance. And at the end of the day, those 10 years, your housing cost would be what you're seeing on the screen. The home would have appreciated $134,000, regardless of the loan that you have. The cost to sell this house would have been about $36,000, regardless of the loan that you have. Your loan costs would vary depending on how you financed yourself, right? So you see the various numbers here depending on how you financed your purchase. Property taxes is not going to matter how you finance your property. It's going to be the same. Homeowner's insurance, same thing. It's not going to matter. So in other words, in 10 years, it cost you $272,000 with the conventional 5% down, or if you finance yourself through an FHA, it cost you almost $280,000. And then on conventional 20%, it costs you about $217,000. This is comparing as apples to apples as you could possibly make it, depending on the type of loan that you get. Plus, you can also compare it against you renting. So oftentimes you're forced to make the decision, should I buy or should I rent? There's no one size fits all. It doesn't always make sense to buy, and it doesn't always make sense to rent. But here you have as close as possible to make this calculation on your behalf. So for comparison, if you were to rent this similar type of house that you're buying here in Benbrook for $390,000, well, if you rent this type of home in Benbrook, it's going to be roughly $2,200. Now you factor in a 3% yearly rise, your same 10 years would have cost you about $313,000 to live. So your housing expense, you can see which one of these loans you ended up going with, versus your housing expense if you would have rented. This gives you a really good comparison between the two, so you can make an informed decision of what you're ultimately going to do with your next real estate move. With that being said, folks, that's how you find the perfect house in Benbrook. We went through some numbers. We went through the real estate in Benbrook. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, you want to schedule an appointment with us, if you're looking to buy or sell in Benbrook or in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, we would love to work with you. Our contact information is down below. Also, feel free to book our discovery call with us, where we go through the real life situation that you might currently be in, and we give you real numbers to work with. Outside of that, hopefully you found value. And if you did, make sure you subscribe and also hit that like button, and we'll see you on the next one.